The alarm bells rang through the bridge of the UFS Vengeance like angry metal birds. Captain Jake Morrison rolled out of his sleeping quarters and pulled on his uniform jacket. His cybernetic left arm clicked softly as he moved. The metal replacement had saved his life 3 times, but it still felt cold against his skin. Morrison walked fast through the metal halls of his ship. Other crew members moved around him with practiced speed. Everyone knew what alarm bells meant in deep space. Someone was in trouble. The bridge doors slid open with a soft hiss. Morrison stepped inside and looked around at his crew. They sat at their stations, fingers dancing over glowing control panels. The main screen showed empty space filled with distant stars. "Report," Morrison said in his rough voice. Lieutenant Amy Clark turned from her communication station. Her red hair was pulled back tight, and her green eyes looked worried. "Sir, we're getting a distress signal from the Zephyrian home system." "It's on all emergency channels." Morrison frowned. The Zephyrians were peaceful aliens who looked like giant butterflies with rainbow wings. They lived on garden worlds and spent their time making art and thinking about the meaning of life. They never asked for military help. "Put it on screen," Morrison ordered. The main display changed to show a Zephyrian. Its beautiful wings were torn and dirty. Purple blood ran down its face. Behind it, Morrison could see smoke and fire. "Please," the alien said in its musical voice. "Anyone who can hear this message, we need help. They came from nowhere. They take our people and turn them into crystal. Our worlds are dying. Please help us." The message cut to static. Then it repeated. Morrison felt his jaw tighten. He looked at his tactical officer. "Lisa, how far to the Zephyrian system?" "Lieutenant." Commander Lisa Rodriguez checked her screens. She was a small woman with dark skin and quick hands. She had been with Morrison for 5 years and never missed a detail. 3 days at maximum speed, sir," she said. "But Captain, we're supposed to wait for orders from Federation Command." Morrison knew the rules. When aliens sent distress calls, the Federation liked to send big fleets with ships from many different species. They would talk and plan and argue for weeks before they moved. By then, the Zephyrians would all be dead. "Bobby," Morrison called to his chief engineer. Chief Engineer Robert Thompson looked up from his station. He was a big man with oil stains on his hands and a kind smile. Everyone called him Bobby. He could fix anything and make weapons out of spare parts. "Can we make the trip in 2 days instead of 3? Morrison asked. Bobby grinned. "If you don't." "Mind the engines running hot and the ship shaking like a paint mixer." "Yes, sir." Morrison turned to Amy. "Send a message to Federation Command. Tell them we're responding to the emergency. Don't wait for their answer." Amy's fingers moved over her. "Controls. Message sent, sir." Morrison sat in his captain's chair. It was old and worn like him. He pressed a button that would let him talk to his whole fleet. "This is Captain Narration to all ships. We just received a distress call from the Zephyrian system. Unknown attackers are destroying their worlds. We're going to help them." He paused and looked around his bridge. His crew watched him with steady eyes. They knew what he was going to say next. "I won't lie to you. The other Federation species think we're too violent. They call Earth a death world and say we're savages. Maybe they're right. But when peaceful aliens are dying and crying for help, being savage might be exactly what we need." Morrison pressed another button. "All ships prepare for hyperspace jump. We leave in 1 hour." Lisa Rodriguez looked at her captain with respect. "Sir, what if Federation Command orders us to turn back?" Morrison smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had seen too much death and was tired of watching good people die while others talked. "Then they can court-martial me after we save the Zephyrians," he said, Bobby Thompson called from his station. "Captain, I'm reading the technical data from that distress signal. Whatever hit the Zephyrians is using some kind of phasing technology. They can slip in and out of normal space, like ghosts?" Amy asked. "Worse than ghosts," Bobby said. "Ghosts can't hurt you. These things can grab you from another dimension and drag you back with them." Morrison stood up and walked to the main screen. The stars looked peaceful, but he knew that was a lie. Space was full of things that wanted to hurt people. Most aliens in the Federation were soft. They had lived in peace so long they forgot how to fight. Humans were different. Earth had taught them hard lessons. Earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanoes, predators, diseases, wars. Every day on Earth was a fight to stay alive. That made humans strong in ways that other aliens could not understand. "Sir," Amy said softly, "I'm getting reports from other systems. These attackers hit the Rigel colonies 2 days ago. The Centauri trade stations went silent yesterday." Morrison felt ice in his stomach. "How many systems?" 7 confirmed attacks, Amy said, "all in the last week." Lisa Rodriguez looked up from her tactical display. "Captain, if they're moving this fast and hitting this many targets, they're not just raiders. This is an invasion." Morrison nodded. He had fought in 3 wars and seen invasion fleets before. But those had been other species from the same galaxy. Species that followed rules and could be reasoned with or defeated. This sounded different. "Bobby, what do our weapons look like against phasing technology?" Morrison asked. Bobby scratched his beard. "Standard energy weapons and missiles won't work if they're not in normal space. But I might be able to modify our electromagnetic pulse systems. If I can hit the right frequency, maybe I can force them back into our dimension." "Do it," Morrison ordered. "Work with the other engineers in the fleet. I want every ship ready for something we've never fought before." Morrison looked around his bridge one more time. 12 ships and 3,000 of the toughest humans in space. Federation Command called them the 4th Expeditionary Fleet, but everyone else called them the Savage Fleet. They took the missions, but other species were too scared to handle. "Amy, any word from Federation Command?" Morrison asked. Amy shook her head. "Nothing yet, sir." Morrison was not surprised. The politicians would argue about jurisdiction and proper procedures while people died. That was why Morrison never waited for permission to do the right thing. "All stations, prepare for hyperspace," Morrison announced. The ship hummed with energy as Bobby pushed the engines to their limits. Morrison felt the familiar tingle in his bones that meant they were about to jump between stars. "Hyperspace in 30 seconds, Lisa announced. Morrison gripped his chair and thought about the Zephyrians. Beautiful, peaceful aliens who had never hurt anyone. Now something was turning them into crystal and destroying their worlds. "Jump," Morrison ordered. Space twisted around them like a broken mirror, and the Vengeance disappeared into hyperspace. Behind them, 11 other human ships followed. They raced toward a battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy. The hyperspace tunnel around the Vengeance looked like a river of broken light. Captain Morrison stood on his bridge and watched the swirling colors flow past his ship. They had been traveling for 2 days, and everyone was on edge. "Captain," Amy Clark called from her communications station. "I'm picking up more distress signals, lots of them." Morrison walked over to her station. Amy's face was pale, and her hands shook slightly as she worked her controls. "How many?" Morrison asked. 15 different systems," Amy said quietly. "Some of the messages are 3 days old. Some are from this morning." Morrison felt his stomach drop. When they started this trip, the attacks were hitting 1 or 2 systems. Now it was 15. The enemy was spreading like a disease. "Put the newest message on screen," Morrison ordered. The main display showed a reptilian alien with scales that changed color as it spoke. Morrison recognized the species. They were called the Vec, and they were traders who lived on asteroid. Mining stations. "This is Mining Station 77 Alpha," the alien said. Its scales flashed red and orange with fear. "They came out of nowhere. Our shields don't stop them. Our weapons pass right through them. They're taking everyone. Please, if anyone gets this message, don't come here. Just run." The message ended with the sound of metal being torn apart. Lisa Rodriguez looked up from her tactical station. "Sir, I'm analyzing all the distress calls. The attackers seem to appear suddenly. Ignore all defenses, take the population, and leave behind some kind of crystal structures." Bobby Thompson called from the engineering station. "Captain, I've been working on those weapon modifications. I think I know what we're dealing with." Morrison turned to face his chief engineer. Bobby looked tired. He had been working without sleep for 2 days, trying to understand the enemy technology. "Talk to me, Bobby," Morrison said. Bobby pulled up a holographic display that showed energy, patterns and waveforms. These things aren't just phasing in and out of normal space. They're existing in multiple dimensions at the same time. That's why normal weapons can't hit them. "Like they're ghosts?" Amy asked. "More like they're standing in several rooms at once," Bobby explained. "We can only see the part of them that's in our room, but they can reach into our room from all the other rooms they're standing in." Morrison studied the display. He had fought many enemies, but nothing like this. "Can you force them to stay in just our room?" Bobby nodded. "Maybe. I've been modifying our electromagnetic pulse weapons. If I can hit them with the right frequency pattern, it might collapse their multi-dimensional existence down to just our space. Then our regular weapons could hurt them." "How long until we reach the Zephyrian system?" Morrison asked Lisa. 6 hours, sir," she replied. Morrison made a decision. "Bobby, you have 5 hours to finish those modifications. I want every ship in the fleet ready." Bobby saluted and ran back to his engineering teams. Morrison could hear him shouting orders over the ship's communication system. Amy raised her hand. "Captain, I'm getting a message from Federation Command." Morrison had been expecting this. "Put it through." The screen showed Admiral Peterson, a thin man with gray hair and angry eyes. Morrison had served under him before and knew Peterson thought humans were too aggressive. "Captain Morrison," Peterson said in a cold voice, "you were ordered to wait for proper authorization before responding to the Zephyrian distress call." "The Zephyrians were dying, sir," Morrison replied. "Waiting would have meant letting them all die." "That's not your decision to make," Peterson snapped. "You're to return to base immediately." Morrison felt anger rise in his chest like hot metal. While they argued about procedures, entire worlds were being destroyed. "Sir, with respect, these attackers have hit 15 systems in the last week. Every hour we waste talking means more people die." Peterson's face turned red. "You're relieved of command, Morrison. Turn your fleet around now, or face court-martial." Morrison looked around his bridge. His crew watched him with steady eyes. They had followed him through 3 wars and dozens of battles. He knew what they were thinking. "Sir, I'm having trouble with my communication system," Morrison said calmly. "I think we're breaking up." "Morrison, don't you dare." Amy cut the transmission. The screen went back to showing hyperspace. "Communications malfunction?" Amy asked with a small smile. "Solar interference," Morrison said. "Happens all the time in hyperspace." Lisa Rodriguez called out, "Captain, we're getting another transmission. This one's from the Zephyrian system." "Put it on screen," Morrison ordered. A new Zephyrian appeared on the display. This one was younger, with bright blue wings that were torn and burned. It spoke from what looked like an underground shelter. "My name is Keeper Xyleth. the alien said in its singing voice. "I'm broadcasting from the emergency shelters under our capital city. The invaders came 3 days ago. They call themselves the Void Reapers." Morrison felt ice in his veins. Even the name sounded evil. "They don't just kill us," Syleth continued. "They drain something from us. Our life force, our souls. I don't know what to call it. They leave behind empty crystal shells that look like us, but aren't us anymore." The Zephyrian looked directly at the camera. Its large eyes were filled with desperate hope. "We've heard that humans are coming to help us. Everyone says humans are dangerous fighters from a death world. Please, if you can hear this, we need dangerous fighters now. The Void Reapers are planning something terrible. They're building something huge out of our crystal shells." The transmission became fuzzy. "They're coming back. They always come back. Please hurry." The message ended. Morrison felt his hands clench into fists. His cybernetic arm whirred softly as the metal fingers tightened. "Lisa, how many Void Reapers are we looking at?" Morrison asked. Lisa checked her sensors and analysis programs. "Based on the size of the Zephyrian system and the speed of the attacks, I estimate at least 50 vessels. Possibly more." 50 against 12, Morrison said to himself. "I've faced worse odds." Amy turned in her chair. "Captain, should I try to contact other Federation fleets?" "Maybe someone else is close enough to help." Morrison shook his head. "The other species can't fight enemies that exist in multiple dimensions. Their weapons won't work, and their shields can't stop something that phases through solid matter." Bobby's voice came over the ship's speakers. "Captain, I've got good news and bad news." "Give me the bad news first," Morrison said. "The Void Reapers are using technology that's millions of years more advanced than anything in the Federation. If we fight them with standard tactics, they'll destroy us in minutes." Morrison sighed. "And the good news?" "I think humans might have a natural advantage against them," Bobby said. "I've been studying the energy patterns from the distress calls. The Void Reapers feed on life energy, but Earth life energy is different from other worlds." "Different? How?" Morrison asked. "Earth is what the other aliens call a death world, right? High gravity, dangerous weather, predators everywhere. Our life energy is tougher, denser, more concentrated. I think the Void Reapers might have trouble draining it." Lisa looked hopeful. "So we might be immune to their main weapon." "Not immune," Bobby said, "but resistant. Like the difference between drinking water and drinking thick soup. They can do it, but it's harder work." Morrison felt a grim smile cross his face. Once again, the harsh lessons of Earth might save human lives. "How long until we drop out of hyperspace?" Morrison asked. 1 hour, Lisa announced. Morrison opened a channel to his entire fleet. "All crews, this is Captain Morrison. In 1 hour, we're going to face an enemy that has destroyed 15 star systems. They're called the Void Reapers, and they exist in multiple dimensions." He paused, thinking about how to explain what they were about to face. "They feed on life energy and turn their victims into crystal. They've been winning because other aliens can't fight something they can't hit. But we're not other aliens. We're humans from Earth, and Earth taught us to fight things that want to kill us." Morrison looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They looked scared but determined. "Bobby's modifications should let us hit them. Our natural resistance should protect us from their feeding. And if all else fails, we're meaner and more stubborn than anything else in this galaxy." Morrison heard laughter from his crew. Grim laughter, but laughter. "Remember, we're not just fighting for the Zephyrians. If we don't stop the Void Reapers here, they'll keep spreading until they reach Earth. So let's show them what happens when they threaten our home." Morrison closed the channel and sat back in his captain's chair. In 1 hour, they would either save the Zephyrians or die trying. But dying was something humans understood better than most aliens. dropping out of hyperspace in 10 minutes. Lisa announced. Morrison gripped his chair and prepared for war. The Zephyrian system looked like a graveyard. Captain Morrison stared at the main screen and felt sick to his stomach. Where beautiful garden worlds should have been spinning around their yellow sun, he saw only crystal structures floating in. Space, sweet mother of Earth, Amy Clark whispered from her station. The crystal formations were huge, some as big as moons. They pulsed with cold blue light and seemed to twist slowly as the human fleet watched. Morrison could see patterns in the crystal that looked almost like frozen screams. Lisa, what are our sensors showing? Morrison asked. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez worked her controls with shaking hands. Captain, those crystal structures are giving off massive energy readings, but the energy is wrong somehow. It doesn't match anything in our databases. Bobby? Thompson called from engineering. Captain, whatever those things are made of, they're not normal matter. They're showing up on sensors that shouldn't even detect solid objects. Morrison felt his cybernetic arm click as his metal fingers tightened. Amy, try to reach any surviving Zephyrians. Amy's fingers danced over her communication controls. Broadcasting on all emergency frequencies, she said. Zephyrian survivors, this is the human fleet. Please respond. For long seconds, they heard only static, and a weak voice came through the speakers. Human ships? You actually came? It was Keeper Xylith, the young Zephyrian they had heard from earlier. We're here, Morrison said into his microphone. Where are you? Underground shelters. Beneath the capital city. There are maybe 3,000 of us left out of 12 billion. Xylith's voice broke with grief. The Void Reapers are building something terrible with the crystal shells of our people. Where are the Reapers now? Morrison asked. They phase. In and out randomly. They seem to be everywhere and nowhere at once. Captain, they tried to drain me yesterday. I felt my life force being pulled out of my body. But something went wrong with the process, and they left me alone. Lisa looked up from her tactical station. Sir, I'm detecting movement. Something big is coming. The space around the crystal formations began to ripple like water. Shapes began to emerge from what looked like empty air. Morrison had seen a lot of alien ships in his career, but nothing like these. The Void Reaper vessels were organic-looking things that seemed to be grown rather than built. They pulsed and writhed like living creatures, covered in the same cold, glowing crystal growths as the destroyed worlds. Some were shaped like twisted spirals, others like giant spiders with too many legs. 12 enemy vessels detected, Lisa announced. Wait, make that 15. No, 23. They keep appearing. Morrison opened a channel to his fleet. All ships, prepare for combat. Bobby, are your modifications ready? As ready as they'll ever be, Bobby replied. All ships have the new electromagnetic pulse systems online. The lead Reaper vessel suddenly grew larger on the screen. Morrison realized it was heading straight for the Vengeance. Evasive maneuvers, Morrison ordered. But before his ship could move, a wave of energy washed over the human fleet. Morrison felt it hit him like a physical blow. Images flooded his mind. Death, emptiness, the end of all hope. He saw everyone he had ever loved dying in horrible ways. He felt his own life force being pulled out of his body. Around him, his crew. Members screamed and fell to the floor. Morrison could feel the Void Reapers trying to drain their life energy, trying to turn them into crystal shells like the Zephyrians. But something was wrong with the process. Instead of feeling weaker, Morrison felt angry. The alien energy that was supposed to drain him made him want to fight. He could feel the same reaction from his crew. All hands, this is the captain, Morrison said into his communicator. Whatever they're doing to us, fight it. Use that anger. Turn it back on them. Morrison saw Petty Officer Danny Williams at the damage control station suddenly stand up. Williams had been caught in the direct path of the draining energy when a console exploded. But instead of collapsing, he looked stronger than before. "Sir," Williams said in a voice filled with strange power, "I think I can redirect this energy." Williams put his hands on the damaged console. Blue light flowed from his fingers into the ship's systems. The Vengeance's weapons suddenly charged to twice their normal power. "Bobby, fire everything we have," Morrison ordered. The modified electromagnetic pulse cannons fired in perfect harmony with conventional weapons. The energy beams hit the lead Reaper vessel, and something amazing happened. The alien ship suddenly became solid and real instead of phasing between dimensions. "Direct hit," Lisa shouted. "The M-pulse is working. Their phasing technology is disrupted." Morrison watched as his fleet's regular weapons tore into the now solid Reaper ship. The alien vessel twisted and screamed, actually screamed like a living thing in pain. Crystal fragments broke off and floated away into space. But more Reaper ships were appearing all around them. The battle became a deadly dance as human vessels dodged between crystal formations while firing their modified weapons. "Captain," Amy called out, "I'm getting reports from the other ships. Several crew members are having the same reaction as Williams. They're absorbing the Reaper draining energy instead of being weakened by it." Morrison felt a cold smile cross his face. "Patch me through to all ships. Channel open, sir. All hands, this is Morrison. The Void Reapers feed on life energy, but they can't digest human life energy properly. We're like poison to them. Use that. If their draining beam hits you, don't resist it, absorb it, and throw it back at them." Morrison watched as his ships changed their tactics. Instead of avoiding the Reaper energy beams, human crews began to deliberately expose themselves to the draining attacks. Each time, more humans discovered they could turn the alien energy against its source. The heavy cruiser Houston scored a direct hit on a spider-shaped Reaper vessel. Instead of the usual explosion, the alien ship seemed to collapse in on itself as its own energy was reflected back. "Sir," Lisa reported, "the Reapers are retreating. They're pulling back toward the inner system." Morrison studied the tactical display. The human fleet had destroyed 5 Reaper vessels and damaged several others. But more importantly, the aliens seemed confused and frightened by what had happened. "Amy, try to contact Keeper Xylith again," Morrison ordered. "Zephyrian shelters. This is Captain Morrison. We've engaged the Void Reapers and driven them off temporarily." Xylith's voice came through the speakers, filled with amazement. "We saw the battle from our sensors. Captain, what you did should have been impossible. The Reapers have never retreated from anything. Can you give us more information about their main base?" Morrison asked. "They've built something massive in the inner system, near our sun. It's made from the crystal shells of billions of our people. We think it's some kind of processing facility where they convert life energy into power for their fleet." Morrison felt his jaw tighten. "How many survivors are in your shelters?" "About 3,000 spread across 6 underground locations. But Captain, you need to know something important. The Reapers don't just drain life energy randomly. They're building towards something. Every few hours, all the crystal structures pulse in unison and send energy toward their main facility." Bobby's voice came over the comm system. "Captain, I'm analyzing the energy patterns from the battle. The Reapers weren't just trying to drain us. They were trying to convert us into something, but the process kept failing." "Convert us into what?" Morrison asked. "I think they were trying to turn us into more of them," Bobby said. "The Void Reapers might not be a single species. They might be a collection of every species they've ever absorbed." Morrison felt ice in his veins. An enemy that grew stronger by converting its victims into more enemies. No wonder they had been unstoppable. Sir, Lisa interrupted, long-range sensors are detecting massive energy buildup from the inner system. Whatever they're building in there, it's getting ready to activate. Morrison made a decision. All ships, prepare to advance toward the inner system. We're going to find their main base and destroy it. Captain, Amy said quietly, there are probably hundreds of Reaper ships between us and the inner system. Morrison looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They looked tired but determined. William still had blue energy crackling around his fingers from absorbing Reaper power. Ben will fight hundreds of ships, Morrison said. The galaxy is counting on us to stop these things here. If we don't, they'll spread to every system, including Earth. Morrison opened a channel to the surviving Zephyrians. Keepers Iliff, we're going to advance on the Reaper main base. If we don't make it back, tell the Federation what you've seen here. Tell them that humans can fight the Void Reapers, but they need to send more ships. Captain Morrison, Xyleth said, my people have a saying, the brightest light shines in the darkest hour. You have given us hope when we thought all hope was lost. Whatever happens, we will remember what you did here. Morrison closed the channel and looked at his tactical display. Between his fleet and the inner system lay the largest concentration of enemy ships he had ever faced. But for the first time since arriving in the system, he felt confident. The Void Reapers had made one critical mistake. They had tried to feed on humans from Earth, and Earth had made humans too tough to digest. All ships, advance formation. Morrison ordered. Let's go show these things what happens. The human fleet moved deeper into the Zephyrian system, like wolves hunting in a crystal forest. Captain Morrison watched his tactical display as more Void Reaper ships appeared around him. The aliens seemed to phase in and out of reality, but now Morrison's crew knew how to fight them. 50 enemy vessels detected, Lisa Rodriguez reported. Wait, 70. They're surrounding us. Morrison felt calm despite the overwhelming odds. His crew had learned something important in their first battle. The Void Reapers could be hurt, and humans could turn their own weapons against them. Bobby, how are our power levels? Morrison asked. Better than ever, Bobby Townsend replied. From engineering. The crew members who absorbed Reaper energy are still channeling power into our systems. We're running at 150% capacity. Morrison opened a channel to his fleet. All ships, remember what we learned. Don't fear their draining beams. Absorb the energy and use it against them. We're not prey, we're predators. The battle began when 3 Reaper vessels tried to phase through the human formation. But Morrison's ships were ready. The modified electromagnetic pulse weapons fired in coordinated bursts, forcing the aliens back into normal space where conventional weapons could destroy them. Direct hit on the lead vessel, Lisa announced. It's breaking. Apart, Morrison watched as the destroyed Reaper ship dissolved into glowing particles that drifted away like alien snow. But more ships kept appearing to replace the ones they destroyed. Captain, Amy Clark called from her station. I'm getting strange readings from the Reaper ships. They're not just attacking us. They're trying to communicate with each other. Can you intercept their communications? Morrison asked. Amy worked her controls frantically. It's not exactly communication. It's more like they're sharing memories or experiences. They're learning from each battle. Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. An enemy that could instantly share knowledge across its entire force would adapt faster than any military strategist could plan for. Sir, Lisa interrupted. The heavy cruiser Portland is under heavy attack. 3 Reaper vessels are focusing their draining beams on it. Morrison watched on his screen as the Portland was surrounded by waves of blue energy. But instead of weakening the ship, the human crew seemed to be getting stronger. The ship's weapons suddenly blazed with triple normal power, destroying 2 of the attacking Reapers in seconds. "All ships follow the Portland's example," Morrison ordered. "If multiple enemies target you, don't scatter. Concentrate their energy and hit back harder." The battle continued for 2 hours as the human fleet fought its way toward the inner system. Morrison's 12 ships destroyed over 30 Reaper vessels, but the aliens kept coming. For every ship destroyed, 2 more appeared. "Captain," Bobby's voice came over the comm, "I'm detecting something massive ahead. Whatever the Reapers are building, it's bigger than a space station." Morrison looked at his long-range sensors and felt his stomach drop. In the inner system, near the Zephyrian sun, floated a structure that defied description. It was made entirely of crystal, formed from the shells of billions of dead Zephorians. The structure was shaped like a giant flower with thousands of petals, each one the size of a city. "Amy, try to contact our Zephyrian friends," Morrison ordered. "Maybe they know what that thing is." Amy established contact with Keeper Xyliths. "Shelter. Keeper, we can see the Reaper main structure. What can you tell us about it?" Xylith's voice came through filled with horror. "We call it the Harvest Crown. The Reapers have been building it for 3 days, using the crystal shells of our people. Every few hours, it absorbs energy from all the smaller crystal formations and grows larger." "What's its purpose?" Morrison asked. "We think it's designed to consume our sun," Xylith said. "If they succeed, the energy release will power their fleet for the next phase of their invasion." Morrison felt ice in his veins. If the Void Reapers could consume entire stars, they would become unstoppable. They could destroy whole sectors of the galaxy. "How long until it's ready to activate?" Morrison asked. "Our scientists estimate 6 hours," Xylith replied. "Captain, if that structure absorbs our sun, the energy explosion will destroy everything in this system, including your fleet." Morrison made a quick calculation. 6 hours to fight through hundreds of enemy ships and destroy a structure the size of the small moon. It seemed impossible. "Captain," Lisa called out, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures approaching from hyperspace. Multiple fleets dropping out near the outer system." Morrison's heart jumped. Maybe Federation Command had finally sent reinforcements. But when the new ships appeared on his sensors, he saw something that made him smile. "Sir, those are human ships," Amy announced with excitement. "The 2nd, 5th, and 7th Expeditionary Fleets. Over 100 vessels." Morrison opened a communication channel. "2nd Fleet, this is Captain Morrison of the 4th Fleet. Glad to see you." A familiar voice responded. "Jake, this is Admiral Kate Sullivan. We got your message about the Void Reapers and decided to crash your party." Morrison had served with Sullivan years ago. She was one of the few officers who understood that sometimes you had to break rules to save lives. "Kate, we've learned how to fight these things, but there are hundreds of them between us and their main weapon. They're planning to consume the TN. Local star." "Copy that, Jake. All human fleets. This is Admiral Sullivan. The 4th Fleet has engaged an enemy that feeds on life energy. According to their reports, we can absorb their attacks and use the energy against them. Follow Captain Morrison's tactical lead." Morrison felt a surge of pride as over 100 human ships formed up around his small fleet. The Void Reapers had probably never faced an enemy force this large. "All ships advance on the Harvest Crown," Morrison ordered. "Remember, we're not just fighting for the Zephyrians. If these things consume a star, they'll have enough power to attack Earth itself." The combined human fleets moved forward like an unstoppable wave. The Void Reapers responded by throwing everything they had into the battle. The space around the inner system became a storm of energy beams, explosions, and phasing alien vessels. Morrison watched as human crews across the fleet discovered they could absorb Reaper energy. Entire ships began to glow with absorbed power, their weapons firing with devastating effect. The aliens' main advantage, their ability to drain life energy, had become their greatest weakness against humans. "Captain," Bobby reported, "the absorbed energy is doing more than just powering our weapons. I think it's changing us somehow. The crew members who've absorbed the most energy are showing enhanced reflexes and strength." Morrison looked around his bridge and saw what Bobby meant. Petty Officer Williams was moving faster than humanly possible, his hands dancing over multiple control stations at once. Amy Clark was processing communication signals that should have taken a team of operators to handle. "Is it dangerous?" Morrison asked. "I don't think so," Bobby said. "It's more like the Reaper energy is unlocking human potential that was already there. Earth made us tough, but this is making us tougher." The battle raged for hours as the human fleets fought their way toward the Harvest Crown. Morrison's tactical display showed hundreds of destroyed Reaper vessels, but the aliens kept fighting with desperate fury. "Sir," Lisa announced, "we're in weapons range of the main structure." Morrison looked at the massive crystal formation ahead of them. It pulsed with the absorbed life energy of billions of dead Zephyrians. Each pulse sent waves of power toward the local star, which was beginning to change color from yellow to orange. "All ships, concentrate fire on the Harvest Crown," Morrison ordered. 100 human vessels opened fire at once. Energy beams, missiles, and electromagnetic pulses struck the crystal structure from every direction. But the Harvest Crown seemed to absorb the attacks without taking damage. "It's not working," Lisa reported. "Our weapons aren't even scratching it." Morrison felt desperation rising in his chest. They had fought so hard to reach this point, only to find their enemy's ultimate weapon was invulnerable. "Bobby, ideas?" Morrison asked. "Maybe we need to get closer," Bobby suggested. "If we can land boarding parties on the structure, human contact might disrupt its crystal matrix the same way it disrupts their ships." Morrison made the hardest decision of his career. "All ships, prepare boarding shuttles. We're going to land on that thing and tear it apart from the inside." Admiral Sullivan's voice came over the comm. "Jake, that's suicide. The structure is surrounded by Reaper ships." "Kate, if we don't stop that thing from consuming the star, we'll all die anyway," Morrison replied. "At least this way we go down fighting." Morrison looked around his bridge one last time. His crew watched him with steady eyes, ready to follow him into hell itself. "Prepare Shuttle Bay for combat boarding operation," Morrison announced. "We're going to show the Void Reapers that humans don't give up, even when the odds are impossible." Captain Morrison stood in the Shuttle Bay of the Vengeance, checking his combat suit one last time. Around him, 200 human Marines prepared for the most dangerous mission in galactic history. They were about to board an alien weapon, the G, size of a small moon. "Remember," Morrison said into his helmet comb, "the crystal structure is made from converted Zephyrians. Our job is to reverse that conversion and shut down the Harvest Crown before it consumes the star." "Petty Officer Danny?" Williams stepped forward. His body still glowed faintly with absorbed Reaper energy. "Sir, I've been thinking about what happens when we touch the crystal. Maybe we can do more than just disrupt it. Maybe we can restore it." Morrison nodded. Williams had been the first to discover that humans could absorb and redirect Void Reaper energy. If anyone could figure out how to reverse their terrible process, it would be him. "Load up," Morrison ordered. The Marines climbed into armored shuttles designed for combat boarding operations. Morrison took the lead shuttle with Williams, Lisa Rodriguez, and a squad of his best fighters. As they launched from the Vengeance, he could see the Harvest Crown growing larger ahead of them. The crystal structure was beautiful in a horrible way. Billions of converted Zephyrians formed intricate patterns that spiraled toward a central core. The core itself pulsed with stolen life energy, sending waves of power toward the dying star. Incoming Reaper fighters, Lisa announced from the co-pilot's seat. Morrison watched as dozens of small Void Reaper vessels moved to intercept the human shuttles. But Admiral Sullivan's fleet was ready. Human fighters engaged the aliens while the boarding shuttles raced toward their target. 30 seconds to contact, Lisa reported. Morrison could feel the Harvest Crown's energy trying to drain him even through the shuttle's hull. But instead of weakening him, it made him angry. The structure was made from the shells of innocent people who had been murdered and converted into a weapon. Contact, Lisa announced as the shuttle crashed through the crystal surface. Morrison and his team found themselves inside a maze of crystal corridors that glowed with cold blue light. The walls pulsed like a heartbeat, and Morrison could hear something like whispered voices coming from the crystal itself. Spread out in teams of 4, Morrison ordered. Look for anything that might be a control center or power source. As they moved deeper into the structure, Morrison began to understand the full horror of what the Void Reapers had done. The crystal wasn't just made from dead Zephyrians. It was made from their life energy itself. The aliens were still conscious. Inside the crystal, trapped and aware, but unable to move or speak. Captain, Williams called from ahead. You need to see this. Morrison followed Williams into a vast chamber at the heart of the Harvest Crown. In the center of the room stood a pillar of pure energy that stretched up beyond sight. Around the pillar, thousands of crystal formations held the converted forms of Zephyrian leaders and scientists. But at the base of the pillar was something else. A creature that looked like it was made from living shadow, with eyes like dying stars. It spoke without moving its mouth. So, the creature said in a voice, like breaking glass, the Deathworlders have come to face the eternal hunger. Morrison raised his weapon, but the creature didn't seem concerned. I have consumed 1,000 galaxies, it continued. I have turned entire species into fuel for my expansion. Yet you resist in ways I do not understand. We resist because that's what humans do, Morrison replied. We don't give up, and we don't let bullies win. The eternal hunger laughed, a sound like planets screaming. Bullies? I am a force of nature. I bring order to chaos by converting all life into a single unified purpose. Your purpose is murder, Morrison said. My purpose is survival, the creature replied. And you will serve that purpose, whether you choose to or not. The eternal hunger raised what might have been hands, and waves of draining energy washed over Morrison's team. But instead of collapsing, the humans began to glow with absorbed power. Williams stepped forward, his body blazing with redirected Reaper energy. You made a mistake when you tried to feed on us. Human life energy isn't like other species. We're from a death world, and death worlds make us different. Williams placed his hands on the nearest crystal formation. Blue light flowed from his fingers into the trapped Zephyrian inside. The crystal began to crack and dissolve, and suddenly a living, breathing Zephyrian stood where the crystal shell had been. It works, Williams shouted. I can reverse the conversion process. Morrison felt hope surge in his chest. All teams, find crystal formations and start the restoration process. Touch the crystal and will the life energy back into normal form. Around the chamber, human Marines began touching the crystal shells. Each time, trapped Zephyrians were restored to life. The aliens gasped and cried as they were freed from their crystal prisons. The eternal hunger screamed in rage. Impossible. Nothing can reverse the harvest process. You forgot something important, Morrison said as he placed his own hands on a crystal formation. Humans are really good at fixing things that are broken. As more Zephyrians were restored, something amazing began to happen. The freed aliens joined hands with the humans, creating a chain of combined life energy that spread throughout the Harvest Crown. The crystal structure began to dissolve from the inside out. "The star," Lisa called out, pointing toward displays. That showed the dying sun. "It's returning to normal color." Morrison watched as the Harvest Crown's power flow reversed. Instead of draining energy from the star, the structure began returning the stolen energy of billions of Zephyrians. The star grew brighter and healthier as its energy was restored. The eternal hunger was shrinking, its shadow form becoming less. "Solid. This is not possible. I am eternal. I am hunger itself." "You're just another bully," Morrison said. "And humans have been dealing with bullies for thousands of years." Williams approached the energy pillar at the center of the chamber. "Captain, I think this is the creature's core consciousness. If we can disrupt it, Morrison nodded. "Do it." Williams placed both hands on the pillar. Light blazed from the contact point as human life energy met the concentrated essence of the eternal hunger. The creature screamed as its consciousness was torn apart by contact with something it could not digest or convert. "I will return," the eternal hunger gasped as it faded away. "I will find other galaxies to consume." "Maybe," Morrison said, "but you won't find them undefended. We'll be waiting." The eternal hunger dissolved into nothing, taking with it the last of the Void Reaper technology. Around the chamber, freed, Zephyrians embraced the human Marines who had saved them. "Captain Morrison," came Admiral Sullivan's voice over the comm, "the Reaper fleet is retreating. They're jumping to hyperspace and leaving the system." Morrison felt exhaustion wash over him. "Copy that, Admiral." Mission accomplished. As they prepared to evacuate the dissolving Harvest Crown, Keeper Xyleth approached Morrison. The young Zephyrian's wings were bright and whole again, restored by human contact. "Captain Morrison," Xyleth said in its musical voice, "how can we ever thank you? You saved not just our lives, but our souls themselves." Morrison smiled tiredly. "Just remember this day, Keeper. Remember that when someone calls for help, good people answer. And spread the word humanity might be from a death world. But we use our strength to protect others, not to hurt them." 6 months later, Morrison stood on the bridge of the Vengeance as it patrolled the outer rim of Federation space. The battle against the Void Reapers had changed everything. Humanity was no longer seen as dangerous savages, but as the galaxies, protectors against threats that other species couldn't handle. "Captain," Amy Clark called from her station, "we're receiving a distress call from the Andromeda Galaxy. Unknown attackers are consuming entire star systems." Morrison felt a familiar stirring in his chest. Somewhere out there, people were in trouble and crying for help. "Plot a course for Andromeda," Morrison ordered, "and send a message to Federation Command. Tell them the Savage Fleet is answering another call." As the Vengeance turned toward distant stars, Morrison smiled. The galaxy was a dangerous place, full of things that wanted to hurt innocent people. But as long as humans sailed between the stars, those innocent people would never face the darkness alone. The Deathworlders were on patrol, and they had an answer for anyone who threatened peace. Try to hurt the innocent, and find out why. Earth made humans so very, very good at fighting back. Morrison settled into his captain's chair and watched the stars grow brighter ahead. Somewhere in the universe, bullies were about to learn a hard lesson about what happened when they picked on someone smaller than themselves. The lesson was simple. Eventually, the Deathworlders would come for them, and Deathworlders never, ever gave up.